Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. But before we start, I have to get a little theme music because since I'm an author now, I have to have a theme music every time I go live. So let me start the show with this right here. All right. Peace and love, everybody. This is Brother Garfield. Let me turn my camera on I'm the birthday guy today. Let me introduce you to somebody who I've developed a relationship over the years with, someone who I respect as a scholar in his field, and someone who has taught me personally a lot to the point where we have nicknamed his book. Would I say misnomered or nickname? Well, let's say nicknamed, old fashioned. Nicknamed his book the Green Book, the official Green Book. So when we say the Green Book in the conscious community, we know we're referring to Russell Gmirkin's work on Manetho and Berosus. But before I go any further, I want to say thank you to your wife for wishing me happy birthday. And I hope to live to see 1,000 more. Like Methuselah, I'll live to be 1,000 years old. How you doing today? Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so pleased to be here as your special birthday guest, and right on.
All right.
And you're now an author. That has got to be like a birthday present to yourself.
Yes, definitely. Before we go into anything, I did an interview 2 days ago. I have to show the audience this. And when I did the interview, I didn't know it wasn't the guy's channel is not a huge channel. It's a fairly new channel. He doesn't have a major audience. But let me see if I could find it here and then share the screen. Yes, his channel is called Esoteric Thoughts. So let me pull it up here for a second here so people could see it. And this interview was done, today's what, Wednesday? I think it was done Monday. We actually pre-recorded it and everything. And he talks about the book release and everything. So, I got a couple of comments and I said, I hardly rewatch my interviews, but boy, it might be a problem and so forth. So anyway, I'm getting some good response from everybody. So I get an email from my brother this morning, and I have to show you guys what this pastor actually said to this man. And I don't know, why are people mad when Garfield brings information out? I don't get it. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't see what's the big deal, So these are the comments. I'm going to share the screen and show the comments, and I'm going to read it for the audience while I'm showing it. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is very troubling, especially from a pastor. This pastor, by the way, doesn't speak for all the pastors in the world. There are some real decent pastors out here. But look at the comments, what the pastor said after he watched the video. He said, "Yet more bullshit video. Quit trying to debunk the scriptures and accept God as your Lord and Savior. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm tired of the misinformation trying to mislead our people. Quit it." So the guy that interviewed me said, "Hey, Pastor, glad you enjoyed the video. Through studying the Bible, the fact that it can be debunked should be a wake-up call in itself. Surely pursuit of truth is what it's all about. If there's something you actually disagree with and can prove, you should discuss and debunk the book. I'm willing to hear your side as always. Cheers." The pastor responds and says, "F you." Wow. You need a slap upside your head with that bullshit. This is the pastor responding to the young man. Wow. Then he goes on to say, then the gentleman who interviewed me says, "You're a man of God trying to cuss me out and want a reaction from me. Never gonna happen. Put your emotions and feelings into responding like a man." Then the pastor said, "F your channel, F the book. You a sinner and deserve to rot in hell." Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. I understand your frustration, Pastor. Yes, your frustration is you want a copy of Garfield's book now, and I don't want to wait any longer. I will buy you a copy. Now, if that's not your frustration, I can't help you, but you stay tuned to the channel and enjoy the next few videos. Cheers. The pastor says, "F you." Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, oh man. I can't believe, well, I won't say I can't believe, but I'm surprised at the response of the pastor. What do you say about that, Russell?
Well, I would say that any book with new important ideas is going to be controversial. And if you don't get people trolling you, then you're just writing inoffensive stuff that doesn't really say anything, and it is pretty useless. So you can kind of gauge the significance of your work by if it makes people think, then that makes some people angry because they don't want to think. And if their identity is based on a set of beliefs and you gently question those beliefs, then that challenges who they are. And you can get some very strong reactions.
Yes, definitely. All right. So you have been working on a book for a couple of months now, or probably a couple of years. And when is the book coming out for this one? This is the one that has to do with Genesis and the Greek connection to Timaeus and so forth, right?
Yes. The short version of the title is Plato's Timaeus and the Biblical Creation Accounts. And I'm supposed to deliver it final form by October. That's what it says in my contract. So I'm still doing some rewrite on the last chapter, and but I'll get it to them by October, and it should be published early next year. It's probably going to be another pricey one because it's Routledge and Academic Press, and they sell to universities and professors. People who have hundreds of dollars to spend on a book, evidently. But it's going to be quite a shock to the scholarly community, and one of my more important books.
Oh wow! I think the academic community is more receptive now to your information than it was 14-15 years ago when you just came out with the Green Book. They were like, wow, what is this guy talking about? But all of a sudden everybody's popping up with this information, and the Greek influence crept in. We know it must have crept in after Herodotus or Plato, after that time period. And more than likely a lot of the stories, including the addition of the Moses character, must have happened after we read the Elephantine Papyri. Can you talk a little bit about that, the Moses character?
Certainly. Yes, the Elephantine Papyri, they are a bunch of documents that were discovered in the wonderful desert climate of Upper Egypt that preserved these manuscripts for 2,500 years. They date to between about 450 and 400 BC. and they are the documents of a military colony at an island called Elephantine, which is at a waterfall in the Nile that was the boundary between Egypt and Ethiopia. So it was a good place to station troops on the border. Well, anyway, these contemporary documents, they don't know, by a Jewish military colony, they don't know anything about Moses. They don't know anything about Mosaic laws. They don't know Abraham or David or Israel or any of those figures. They have no knowledge at all of anything biblical, even though they were in direct contact with Jerusalem. We know that because when their temple was destroyed in Elephantine around 410 BC, they wrote the people in Jerusalem, they wrote the high priest and his brothers and said, is it okay with you if we build a new temple? So they were on a first name basis with them, but the high priest and his brothers in Jerusalem, they didn't say, hey, haven't you read the book of Deuteronomy? There's only one temple and it's at Jerusalem. Evidently, they approved rebuilding that temple because, the archaeologists discovered the rebuilt temple. And so anyway, it's very solid information that as of about 400 BC, there just wasn't a figure of Moses or the Pentateuch or any of those writings. They just didn't exist yet.
Do you think that Hectaeus of Abdera, do you think he's the one that invented the Moses character as far as being connected to because if you read the Homer and your Greek literature throughout the years, they talk about a figure named Bacchus. And you in the Green Book, you don't go that route. That's the route I normally lean on, is the connection between Bacchus and Moses. And we know Sargon, the idea of him floating in the water, they probably got it from Sargon. But are some Egyptian storyline, because we got Egyptian storylines with that. But with all the Greek connections with the storyline, do you think it's more of an Egyptian connection, or if Hectaeus of Abdera is writing his version of Egyptica, the Egyptian history, was he the one that put in Moses as a figure?
His is the first mention of Moses in any literature anywhere. He wrote a foundation story in which he said that the land of Judea was colonized by a band of Egyptians led by a figure named Moses. Because Egypt was overpopulated, and so they sent some of their excess population to the neighboring region of Judea. And that Moses, in typical Greek fashion, he established the nation, he built the temple, he established their laws, he did everything that Greek colony leaders did. So it's a very typical Greek story. Some of it draws on Plato, by the way, but he's the very first person who mentioned Moses, and where he got that from is a mystery. He was writing in Egypt. He was a Greek who visited the Ptolemaic kingdom that was centered at Alexandria, and he wrote a history of Egypt to help the new rulers understand the nation they were ruling and its customs and history and this and that. So part of what he did is he wrote about how the Egyptians colonized the whole world. They sent colonies to Athens and Babylon. That was an Egyptian foundation, and this and that. So, and this fictional story of Moses founding Judea is just one in that whole collection. So, so that was really influential for the biblical story of Moses and the Exodus. But on the other hand, The name Moses itself is possible he heard that in Egypt. It's part of the word Ramses and Tutmoses, and it's a word that is used in Egypt. So maybe he picked up that from some Egyptians, but he's nothing like the biblical Moses. As far as the story of Sargon and floating in a basket, there's some good parallels there. But on the other hand, there's about, I forget, 40 or 50 different Greek stories that also have people floating in chests and boxes down rivers and this and that. So it's hard to say if that's Egyptian or Greek in origin.
Yeah, what I do in my book is that I don't go through the whole parallelism and talk about this is from that. I created my own concept, my own little cliche right now, if I may. It's called Stories Have No Borders. So that means, of course, we have syncretism and different people from different cultures. And I think, what's his name? Stern. There's a guy named Stern. I forgot his first name. He talks about the Greeks, right? He talks about the Greeks and the pottery in the Levant, that influence. So that Greek influence possibly was there early on. And I think Aram Mir, if I have his name correct, he also did some studies on the ethnogenesis of Israel, and he talks about how the Greeks were mercenaries for the Egyptians during the time of Canaan and all that stuff. But yeah, so I use that term. I use the stories have no borders. I mean, even when I talk about Moses and I talk about Bacchus, I mean, these are stories which are based off empires. And I think how the Bible fools a lot of folks is that the writer is so creative that he's writing like Israel was an empire to trick us.
Yeah.
Like, we know this big empire, you better recognize, you want to talk about the Persians and the Assyrians and the Egyptians. Well, you better talk about the Israelites. We were this major empire ruling from the Euphrates all the way through the Levant to where Israel is and Egypt. We ruled all over. So I think that was one of the things that they did to us. What do you feel about that?
I think that's pretty accurate. A lot of kingdoms or ancient civilizations, after the time of Alexander the Great, when he conquered Egypt and he conquered Babylon and Judea and everywhere, all these fallen civilizations, they wrote their national histories that said, oh, back in the day, we were just as great as the Greeks. We had vast empires, and we invented civilization and writing and this and that. So there's like 5 or 6 different books from the Phoenicians and from India and you name it. All of them were claiming how great they were back in the distant past. And I view the books from Genesis through Kings as just one of those national histories that is self-aggrandizing, talking about how wonderful they used to be. It's kind of like these old guys sitting around telling war stories about when they were young and exaggerating things. Now that they're all they have left are their stories. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think but I think the difference with the Bible wants us to, the writers want us to actually think it's real. And I've never heard anyone in Greek culture saying, hey, I'm from the I'm a Hellenistic guy and I'm looking forward to Helen in the future and I'm from Helen directly. But with the Bible, you see people actually today saying, hey, I am from Jacob and I am a descendant. If I'm from the lost tribes or whatever. I think that's the biggest difference with the Bible and all other writings. The Bible folks want us to say this is completely literal, while people from Assyrian culture, Greek. Well, I want to say Assyrian culture because that's one big mix. But I'll say from the Greek culture, I don't see anyone saying, "Hey, we come from these Greeks, and this is going to happen to us, or we're going to have these great benefits because we come from Greeks, or the Roman descendants saying, hey, we come from Rome." I think the Bible is the only book that's trying to stress a literal understanding.
Yeah, yeah. I would pretty much agree with that. And in my book, Plato and the Creation of the Hebrew Bible, I point out that in Plato's Laws, which is his last book that he ever wrote, he talked about creating a national literature for your nation that talks about how great you were in the past, how your laws were divine, they were given by God to some legislator in ancient times, and how your people maybe have come back to that land and you're keeping the ancient customs. And basically, he invented a sacred national literature. He invented the Hebrew Bible, and as a very powerful educational tool to indoctrinate a nation about how wonderful their laws and their past was, so that they'd be loyal to it forever. And the only people in ancient times who took that agenda and applied it were the Jews around 270 BC, and they created the books of Moses and the Hebrew Bible. And just like Plato said, they're still reading it today, and they're still loyal, and we still have it with us. Mm-hmm. So national literatures are very powerful, and people are loyal to them because they, when you're reared in something, when you grow up in a set of beliefs, like that pastor that you quoted, you get fiercely loyal to whatever it is you were taught as a little person. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to shake.
Yep.
It's a very successful technique.
Yeah, I got a special guest here that's jumping in on my birthday. It's Mr. Lambert himself, the real one. Is this a clone, or is this the real Derek Lambert from
This is
Vision?
the OG, baby.
He looked like an avatar to me.
How you doing?
Hey, we doing good, man.
Happy birthday, brother. Happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
it. Congratulations on the book.
Yeah, man. It's causing a lot of hatred that's expected, and a lot of curiosity. But a lot of folks, the topic of the book is about the Black Hebrew Israelites. But what people are going to realize when they read the book, I really don't really concentrate on them. I basically just show it actually addresses Judaism on a whole, right? But the fact is, in my community, we don't address archaeology, anthropology, history, genetics, or linguistics. And I look at not really linguistics and DNA, but as far as, the Israelites are Canaanites, I show evidence, what Finkelstein, Mazar, and William Dever agree on. And this type of information is not prevalent in the Black Hebrew Israelites. So if they knew and understood why they say Israelites are Canaanites, they would understand, hey, you know what? Oh, I can't be a Canaanite because the Bible says we don't do like the Canaanites. So you're trying to attach yourself to the Bible, but yet still in the Bible, it does say that the Israelites are Canaanites, which is another story for another time. It does say it in Ezekiel twice, and in Genesis 23:7, as far as Hittites and Amorites. They don't understand that the Amorites are the indigenous Canaanites in the biblical story. So when you hear the Amorites, I'm from the Amorites. So why would you write and say you're from the Amorites? And then when Abraham is saying, hey, let me get some land, the Hittites are the people of the land. At that point, the writer is referring to the land Canaan, but he's saying that the Hittites control it. So, you know, it's kind of, sometimes the Bible of course it contradicts itself, especially in Joshua. I have a chapter 3 where I talk about the Joshua writer versus the Joshua writer. So one is saying, yes, we're going to destroy the entire place. The other one said, nah, we ain't really. We was like buddy. We hung out with these people after we went in, you know. So, and then the Deuteronomic writer, he's just the killer Yahweh God. He just comes in, oh, we going to kill all these folks. Let's just get rid of them. You know, so
yeah, no, that's,
you know,
that's a good point. I mean, your book, you talked about this when you were previewing it here on your channel, and you're like, you're showing source material that does not, it's different traditions, and who knows over how much time these various traditions are being pulled into this finalized, if you will, redacted book collection of text. And here you have like blue, green, purple, yellow, but it's all black. You know what I mean? Like it's all the same color, and they're forcing it to be this one thing that it's really not.
One idea that I brought in that I've never really been taught by anybody is I have a chapter called Sennacherib, Hezekiah, and the Lost Tribes of Judah. Now, this is in total contradiction to what is taught of the lost tribes. I'm going to tell you why. Sennacherib at 701 did come and claim that he took 200,000 people from Judah, right? The Bible says he came and took all the fortified cities, 46 cities. So they both confirmed that something happened. So what I did is I used Rabbi Pamela Barmash. Yes, the female rabbi. I use her. She's a brilliant person. She is brilliant. When I mean brilliant, super brilliant. She's actually smarter than Russell. Nah, I'm just kidding. Oh, yeah. Wait. So now, she now confirms that the archaeology confirms that a lot of people were taken. Of course, the Assyrians are going to exaggerate 200,000, but the person is trying to say we took a lot of people. Now, in the lost tribes argument, they don't talk about them taking these Judeans because it doesn't fit into the paradigm of the lost tribes argument. So now, if all these people were taken from Judea, went into Assyrian society, becoming army members or living in Babylon or wherever, then how could the people in 70 AD be the lost tribes that went into Africa? Because they teach that 1 million people went into Africa after 70 AD and all this craziness. So now that means those were actually Roman citizens, if that was true, because Judea then was a larger geographic area that stretched up into northern Israel at the time, all the way up to like Pella. So it wasn't the same geography when you talk about Judeans, but you had the people that actually worship in the temple and all that stuff. But the people, majority of them are actually Persian colonists. If you look into it, the people that came back, and if you look in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, you see all these people with these Persian names who come in. Because normally people don't understand that Yehud, which is Judah, the province, was like a collection center for the areas that Persia in what's it called, like Area 5, I think it was Area 5. They collected the money for all the people that they controlled in Area 5. So that's what Yehud was mainly for, to collect money in the temples for the Persian government. So at that time, so now when you look at Judah now, you look in Ezra and you look in Isaiah, and I use the guy by the name of Mario Liverani. He talks about the Abraham tradition versus the Exodus tradition. So the people now in the land, in the Bible, this is in the Bible, by the way, they're saying that we come from Abraham and we are owed this land. These are the people that are left over. Because remember, although Sennacherib took all these quote unquote 200,000 people, the people that were left in the land, remember, Nebuchadnezzar had 3 exile stuff where he guaranteed them income producing land. A lot of people left because of that. Then Zedekiah rebelled. He took people because of that. And then there was another exile. So there's 3 times he took people out of Judah. Finkelstein estimates that only 1,500 people were left in Jerusalem at the time. So now you're looking at Judah all scattered around, not many people who are native indigenous Judeans. They said, okay, the land of Judah is ours because we are from Abraham. This is what it says in the Bible, right? So now the people who are coming said, no, you are not the true Jew because you don't follow Torah. So now the people in the land don't know Torah. How is that possible? if there's a Torah.
I think it's polemics. Yeah, there's polemics.
And bear in mind, this is after the fact, way after, because this you're talking about Isaiah 66, which is third Isaiah. You're talking about Ezra and Nehemiah, which Finkelstein Rose Hasmonean realities, Nehemiah Hasmonean realities, which is showing that a lot of it was written during the time of Hasmonean time period because of the archaeology and the buildings that are named. So he's now in line with Russell Gmirkin now. Finkelstein, who was the other way. Yes. So
it's about time. He finally has caught up.
He's caught up now. So now he's saying it's Hasmonean realities based off of the archaeology and what's left. So now they said there's no building going on like what the Bible says in Nehemiah. There's no building going on during that time period. They talk about they rebuilt the temple and all this stuff. They said, no, there's no evidence of this. Well, so they're coming around to Niels Lemche, to Russell Gmirkin, T.L. Thompson. These people are winning the argument now. A lot of people don't see that.
You know, one of the biggest problems I see in this, though, with what you're dealing with and the kind of uphill battle you have is how often the groups that you're actually trying to educate and challenge, if you will, are using the New Testament. That, to me, it's like, look, I get it if you were just trying to stick to, like, the Hebrew Bible. Now you've mixed oil and water, and you're trying to claim that you're connected to this unified. It's so many problems with that position. I can't even begin. Like, oh, but the New Testament talks about the new covenant, and that's quoted in the Old Testament. Everything's quoted in the Old Testament. Right now, I'm doing a deep dive on the recontextualization of the New Testament using the Hebrew Bible and how different. I don't care if you quoted the Old Testament. I don't care how many times you quote the Old Testament. What it means in the New is not what you think it means. It's not what it says in the Hebrew Bible. And so, like, people who are claiming ethnic descent and they're trying to connect themselves to the Hebrew Bible in that sense, Paul is a problem for you. So you might want to scratch him out of your whole...
Yeah, Paul is a serious problem.
Go ahead and get him out of your... figure something that works and whatever makes you happy and you want to believe in that, that's fine. But Paul will contradict you.
Hey, hold a second, Derek. Let me get Russell's point on what I talked about with the whole stuff. Hey, listen, man, old guys like me and Russell, we're like 90, 95. We don't have as good memory as you do. So,
okay.
All right. Go ahead, Russell.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
There you go.
Well, listen, I want to go sideways on this a little bit. I was wondering why I'm losing my voice, and then
oh my gosh, get out of here, bro! Get out of here! Oh, someone in the audience has got healing powers. You got to heal him. Come on.
Yeah. So I want to go a little bit sideways. This is my birthday present to Garfield. Sennacherib.
Yes, sir.
Sennacherib. He conquered all the fortified cities of Judah. He took captives, all of this in 701 BC. There are destruction layers on lots of fortresses all around, and they're dated to 701 BC because there's a certain seal. It's called Lamelech seal, LMLK, about the king.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in use at that time. And you see these seals right in the ash of the destruction layer. So you can identify cities that were, or forts that were destroyed by Sennacherib in 701 BC. And they have found that this includes a bunch of fortresses and cities around the Dead Sea, all bordering the Dead Sea. One of them was the ancient site of Qumran. The word Qumran is thought to come from the word Gomorrah. So what you have is all these cities bordering the Dead Sea that are destroyed in actually destroyed in 701 BC. This is, Sodom and Gomorrah happening. In Genesis 14, it talks about how after 14 years, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, they rebelled against Chedorlaomer and these other kings. Well, in In the book of 2 Kings, it talks about how after 14 years, Hezekiah rebelled against Sennacherib. So it's a memory of the same rebellion.
Wow.
Then these Mesopotamian forces come in to the area and they just lay it waste. They destroy it. A lot of the language in Sodom and Gomorrah story about how fire from heaven, nothing will ever grow there again, blah, blah, blah. That comes right out of Assyrian conquest stories. So, my gift to you today is this whole Sodom and Gomorrah story comes out of your 701 BC Sennacherib conquering Judea. And even in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, you'll recall how these conquerors, they took a bunch of captives from the area and they were transporting them back up to Damascus, headed for Mesopotamia, when Abraham allegedly rescued them. So here's some of your lost tribes going into, it's part of the Sennacherib captivity going on.
Wow.
So anyway, it's just a little stray connection that I thought.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you make that connection.
Yeah, I haven't published that yet, but
okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Hey, Trenton Jenkins, thank you for the $5, and Max Bird, thank you for the $50. All right. Hey, Russell, do you have Cash App? Or Zelle?
No, I have a PayPal, but
okay.
And I think on my russellgmirkin.com, I have a little box where you can click if you want to send me a donation. Not that anyone ever has, but someday someone will patronize me. It would be nice.
Yeah, we're gonna I'm gonna send over something today for although it's my birthday, because it's funny that you mentioned that Genesis 18. In my first chapter in my book, I do talk about the storyline of Genesis 18 and 19 and connected it to Metamorphosis with Ovid and Festi and all that stuff, and showed a lot of comparisons. And then now you're busting my brain right now. I'm like, oh man, look at this stuff right here. If I had that ammunition right there, man.
There's always something he's finding,
Yeah, always.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for me.
Yeah.
Oh man. So go ahead, Derek. You remember what you were talking about. Go ahead. We don't remember. We're old guys. We don't remember.
Okay, now you screwed me up. I think I'm catching up to you guys. So I got a surprise, I guess you'd say. I recently went, and 2 days ago I was sitting at lunch with Professor John J. Collins.
Wow.
And I mentioned you, Russell. I said, hey, do you know who Russell Gmirkin is? Now, this guy has so many, things he deals with all the time. He said, no, I don't. I mentioned you had the green book. I talk about Berosus and Genesis, Manetho, and Exodus. He said, I think I do know him. He said, that he's a nice guy. He didn't have anything bad to say. So I thought maybe he had something bad to say about you being a minimalist. Because, he's not a minimalist, but he's also not a maximalist. They kind of fall in the middle area. And he was actually,
You mean me?
You would be a minimalist, correct?
Well, I actually consider myself a post-maximalist.
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily say that everything is young in the Hellenistic era. I'll take a look at everything from ancient times to modern times, but I don't buy into this maximalist. Moses wrote the books of Moses, and
I hope not.
But I'm the only person who calls themselves a post-maximalist. So I guess. Anyway.
Okay. So it's a little more complex, which is really good. I mean, I kind of knew that already a little, but he didn't have anything bad to say.
I don't mind it if people call me a minimalist. That's fine. It's not an insult.
I just wanted you to know he didn't have anything bad to say. Then I asked Joel Pearson, my bad. Joel Pearson's my buddy here online. Joel Baden, Professor Joel Baden. Now, he doesn't like dating, Russell. He does not like dating. And he said, because it's not that easy. It's not something you should be certain of in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean?
Especially online nowadays, these dating apps.
Yeah, you can't date these young girls. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
just, you know, especially ones named like Septuagint, Hebrew
Yeah,
Bible, you know, those chicks, you got to watch out for them girls. You know what I'm saying? Look at the love, man. Thank you guys for showing love to Garfield, for real. Seriously.
Oh, man. Yeah, the Cash App is Ask Brother Garfield, and that's the email too. askbrothergarfield@gmail.com.
And buy his book at Brother Garfield University, because Garfield will school you. He's good at that.
And he has a dagger that comes with every book in the back of the damn thing. You know what I'm saying?
it's just as you will see it, and you will see the face of Jacob on it. That's how much. Hey, Russell, what do you think about the pre-exilic prophets not mentioning Moses? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I don't think there were any pre-exilic prophets. Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, all of those, you know, a lot of them use the Pentateuch. And so I date all of them after 270 BC, at least in their final form. You know, they are traditionally regarded as pre-exilic because of maximalism. People think that Isaiah wrote the book of Isaiah and so on and so forth. But there's really none of them whose date is not questionable. The oldest prophetic book that I know of that can be dated is the book of Haggai, which appears to be an authentic group of oracles around the time when Darius authorized the rebuilding of the Temple of Jerusalem. That one's authentic. I think everything else is younger. But now, what was your specific? Oh, Moses and the pre-exilic prophets. Yeah, the prophets, their use of Moses and the Pentateuch and all of that. It's all of them are a little bit different. There might be some older materials in some of them, but it's difficult material. So I guess I don't have a strong opinion as to why they portray Moses in the Exodus or ignore Moses the way they do. Their dating, their authorship, it's all material that needs a lot of research. There is one exilic prophet though that does have portions that seem to be extremely old, and that's the book of Ezekiel. I'm just going off on this wild tangent, Garfield. Anyway, Ezekiel chapter 1, which talks about this throne with the eyes and the chariot throne and all this weird vision of heaven. I don't know if you're familiar with Ezekiel chapter 1. It's so weird and controversial that the rabbis forbid people using it as a teaching tool. But if you look at it, it's so weird. And as I read it, it's not even a book, chapter that features Yahweh. It's non-Yahwistic. Yahweh is never mentioned except in one verse, which was a later little editor thing. It appears to be a Babylonian document. It very closely resembles a text about Marduk being up in the heavens with his chariot throne and all of that stuff that dates to around 700 BC. So I don't know. My moral here, if there is a point to my story, is you have the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible, and people assume that it was written by Jews. There's Babylonian material in it. There's Samaritan material. There's Assyrian, Egyptian, you name it. Just because it's in a Jewish book of the prophets or in the Jewish Bible does not mean it's Jewish. I think part of my advantage as a scholar is I look at everything with fresh eyes and I don't make assumptions. And, one of my big things is that the Jewish Bible is not, it's not Jewish. It's a lot of it's Greek and you name it. Like Garfield, you say stories have no borders. There's stories from practically all over the world in the Jewish Bible. So I went off on that weird tangent, and you can bring me back down to earth if you want, and you got me back on track.
You're good. I have a chapter of the book about the calendars, festivals, and diet, and it actually didn't make the book actually. So it's my volume 2 is pretty much done because I didn't want to have the book over 250 pages. But one thing I noticed with the Babylonian influences, the metonic cycle in the calendar. I don't know if you really deal with the calendar stuff. It's extremely complicated. I wouldn't urge anybody to even pick up that study. But the metonic cycle it's a 19-year period where in between you have like an extra year here, an extra year after 5 years and 7 years, and it's so confusing. But it's directly from the Babylonian calendar system, and the names of the Jewish calendar is the Babylonian calendar names. So they are actually telling you where. And then what I learned was Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and a couple, like 4 main holy days directly have direct connection with Babylon. Direct, meaning like you could find it in Babylon, the same type of celebration. It doesn't matter what it is. So it seems like with the this is why a lot of people think that the Bible is they were writing in by the rivers of Babylon or whatever. What I say is, I say it influenced them, and some of the people kept those traditions, and later on, like what Russell said, during Barossa's time, it was a perfect opportunity, because before, it's like what Bob Beckin says. He said saying the word Jewish is an anachronism if you're referring it to like the 5th century. It's not real. You're not being serious now. You're talking about a culture that developed way after. There is no 39 books of a Bible pulled together and I'll say, hey, me, Russ, and Derek gonna hang out in the 2nd century BC. We got all the books. Right. We gonna conspire. We gonna be the ones that have all the books. It doesn't exist, because you remember the most of the Jews didn't even accept Ezekiel, and Daniel is later on anyway. So they definitely didn't have 39 books. So what the folks in the country here in the Black community believe in is like they have the same Judaism that they have today. They had it back then, which is like it was like, that's nuts, because there was no Judaism. It didn't exist.
Real quick, Yehuda. I just wrote Dr. Luther, and he's writing a book. He's been writing it for a long time. I asked him when his book will be out. So I guess stay in touch with me, email me. I will make sure I get that answer for you, but I don't know when it's going to be done because he's been writing it for a long time. So appreciate you super chatting for sure, man. Seriously, especially during Garfield's birthday. And that goes for all of you who are showing him some love. I really appreciate it. You will grow wings in heaven, okay? Don't worry.
Hey, my Cash App is Ask Brother Garfield. Russell, you need to get a Cash App, Russell.
I should. I will. Good idea. So these Babylonian month names, you find them in cuneiform documents in Israelite territory, when Assyria took over Israel. You find them at Gezer. You find them at the city of Samaria. They had those Babylonian month names, in 700 BC. The Talmud said that the Jews brought back these Babylonian month names with them when they returned from the exile. Okay, the Talmud is written like hundreds of years in the Common Era. Useless, worthless as a actual historical source. They had them back in Assyrian times. And remember, Samaria became an Assyrian province. They took Sumerians and took them to Assyria, Media, whatever. They brought Babylonians into Samaria, and it was a population exchange. So you have all these Babylonians who are in the land of Samaria. They didn't disappear. They didn't like poof years later and become Israelites. They were still around through the Assyrian period, the Babylonian period, the Persian period, during the Hellenistic era. And it's quite possible that these Babylonian holidays that you're talking about, they could have been observed in the area 700 BC and ever since. You don't have to go into exile and come back from Judah to get those holidays and customs. They had them from day one. And the Samaritans, including their Babylonian educated elites, they had a big hand in writing the books of Moses. You have a lot of Babylonian material in there. So that could have been the channel for all these Babylonian influences, and not necessarily the exiles from Judah.
Right. What about the Sabbath? Because I think that's the same thing I said about the Sabbath also, that they probably got it from the Assyrian, because they pretty much had the same calendar system.
Absolutely. The Babylonians and Assyrians, they had what they called hemerologies. It was a monthly book of lucky and unlucky days, and some of them have survived. Now, in one of the later ones, these lucky and unlucky days repeated every 7 days. So they really invented the week. And the seventh day was unlucky for the king. He shouldn't travel, he shouldn't do business, he shouldn't do this and that. So really all this Sabbath stuff comes from these Assyrian, Babylonian lists of lucky and unlucky days. And yet the Sabbath that is in the Bible, that was, it didn't really come to fruition in Babylon and Assyria. It really is a local Israelite Judean phenomenon. But see, these Babylonians who were living in the area, in Samaria, they were calendar experts. All this calendar stuff, it came from them. So these Babylonian Samaritans, they, I believe they invented the Sabbath. And in fact, in a document, a letter that was written around 168 BC by the Samaritans, they claimed that they invented the Sabbath. There's no corresponding ancient document in Jewish history where the Jews said they invented the Sabbath. So, it was a Samaritan invention, which means it was a Babylonian invention.
Hey, let me welcome everybody. Welcome my brother Ankh, man. We call him the God Killer. He's in the building from the Erra squad, one of the people that influenced me over the years, who actually brought me to the forefront, because I wasn't the guy that wanted to come to the forefront. And he actually wrote the foreword to my book. Shout out to Ankh West. What's up, my brother?
Hey, man. Peace to the panel, man. And happy birthday, Garfield.
That's right. I'm about to be 100, man. 100 years, 100 years in the conscious community, man. It's not regular. It's like dog years. 100 dog years, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let me thank you for actually bringing scholars on the show, real scholars, right? No matter what color they are, man. I think that's essential for our learning in this community, man. So I really appreciate that. I've been rocking with the scholars, man, from day one. Archaeology, that's my thing. So I really appreciate the information, man. It's real sound, it's real clear, and I can actually look it up, critique it, and make some sense out of it, yo. So, yeah, we've been on this tip for years, man. It's so good when you actually bring that to the forefront without no bias. So, I appreciate the gentleman on here. I appreciate the platform. And, you know, God is the gift that keeps giving, bro. You're giving the community a gift, and I'm not saying it just to say it, but, you know what I'm saying, this is the way we always needed to be learning about the Bible as African people. We need to know the archaeology. We need to know about the whole nine, the text, you know, who created the text, where it was created at. These are things we need to know, the biology of the individuals that wrote the text, what's the periods. You know, we did all of that, bro. We've been doing that forever. That's why you stay leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. And I'd like to also say congratulations to your book. To hell with the haters, bro. That's all I'm going to say. Appreciate you, Phil.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Yeah, let me get back to Russell, because, you know, Russell, we got to keep Russell on a schedule. You know, he has his
Good job, bro. Hey, Russell, good job, man. Good job, bro.
Thank you.
I see you,
Thank
man.
you.
I've been watching your work, reading your work for a while. Good job, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Russell has his Starbucks. You know what was crazy through this whole thing about putting out a book? I gave up on coffee, and I was actually addicted to coffee. Dunkin' Donuts coffee, by the way. Let me put it out there. And what happened is I got the vaccine. When I got the vaccine, I got drowsy. So I had to keep up my energy because of the book and everything. So I decided, instead of getting one large coffee daily, I would get one in the morning and one at night. So by the time, you know, I wore off those 2 days to get the vaccine, I said, hey, I want to stop taking the two and make it one. Oh, man. Those were some sleepless nights. I've never been a person who's been on drugs, but I have a feeling I know how it is to get off drugs right now. I really do. It's crazy. And yeah, Miss Tiffany, yeah, I lost a lot of weight. You know, I'm trying to keep fit. You know, when you reach 100 years, and you know, it's tough. You know, if you want to live 150 years.
I don't know, man. Moses pulled it off real easy in the wilderness, bro. Like, it was nothing to him. He was 120, wasn't he? When he was,
yeah.
I mean, let's come on, guys. You know what I mean?
Oh man, now you punking me.
He was 120 and he was still a dog.
I know. Abraham was knocking up chicks at 99. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, how about he wrote his own opinion? How about that?
Oh snap! Look, Russell, look. I've got Russell doing the series on the Green Book, right? Because I said, okay, I gotta say something. I gotta confess, right? This right here is the confession stand. I could speak loudly and openly. I did not know about Russell till I met you on YouTube, Garfield, and
you took him away from me. That's the thing that hurt me now.
I try to share.
I want Russell back. I demand Russell back.
Look,
I like having brothers fighting over me.
I see Russell all over. I see him on this channel. I'm like, and everybody like, oh, it's because of Garfield. So you see, it's you never know where you might go just being on the Dagger Squad. And I changed the name, by the way. It's now Dagger Squad University instead of Dagger Squad, because I'm bringing all these scholars on. So it's like a university when you come on here and when you watch us.
You might want to make it into a nonprofit at some point. I don't know, but this is definitely educational and it's very important. Like Unc said, what you are doing, I've said this many times in private message to you, man, like nobody's doing this, right? What you're doing in your community, the way you're doing it. And I found Russell because of you. I was traveling from Washington State all the way to North Carolina, and I had 38 hours to spare. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so I'm on YouTube and I see this little like nonchalant, no special thumbnail, just like there's a dagger, you know, and I'm like, okay, what's this? And I click it, and it was full of this unbelievable stuff that you just cannot find anywhere on the internet, not the way that it's presented. And I said, hold up, he has another video with this guy, dude. I'm addicted already. After the first video, it was over. So I already had myth vision, but I had never had this kind of dagger that, ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing on the screen right now. You know what I'm saying? And
the ultimate dagger, by the way. Not the pen ultimate, the ultimate dagger. Which I don't think academia has recovered from the Green Book. They're trying to go to the Burgundy Red Book, but you don't even need to go to that far. The Green Book alone has done the work. As a matter of fact, anybody who is Rob on around, I'm trying to hit him up because he always, every time I bring Russell on, he always get mad at me and say I never tell him that you're on, because he wants to come on and ask Russell a question about the Green Book. We've been arguing for years about the Green Book. We love the Green Book. So hold on, let me see if I could get it on the Hangouts or whatever. But yeah, I mean, thank you for that, man. I mean, I'm glad I brought Russell to you, and from people seeing him on your channel, they want him elsewhere. And
it wasn't just Russell.
Guys, yeah, the French guys, they interviewed me the other day too, and they're gonna air, I think, next week. That was another hell of an interview I did with them. And Dr. Mayat also interviewed Russell, and so people see
Mabali Makasi,
yes, right, the French people.
Yeah.
How was that for you? I love the fact that when you speak English and somebody's translating, it does.
I think it's great. It was just
I've made it.
So much fun.
Hey, your voice went out on that one too, Russell.
Yeah,
you can't blame me for everything.
I can try.
Can't speak it.
Hey, you also introduced me to Zvi Benit.
Yes, Zevi
So
Bendor Benit, who is actually, I need to give him a shout out because he's actually going through it medical wise. But he is one of the greatest minds on the Lost Tribes.
Oh my gosh.
He is the guy. Shout out to Dr. Josh Bowen in the chat, Digital Hammurabi. Russell, are you familiar with Digital Hammurabi, Dr. Josh Bowen?
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, we need to put them on the show. Well, he's actually coming on tonight at 8 o'clock. When I don't know if you're going to be at Starbucks. You could jump back on if you want. It's going to be 5 o'clock your time.
I won't be there, so your voice won't.
Yeah,
yeah, good. That's a big plus.
Dr. Carrier is going to be on also. I think Dr. Mayat is going to be on. My brother Ong's going to be on. Probably Captain Tazariak, Divine Prospect, a couple of people. So we're gonna. I'm telling you, Dr. Josh Bourne. I told him this before. He's the white version of me, but of course he's more intelligent.
You told me that shit too. What are you talking about? How many white people are the version of you now? This is crazy, bro.
Oh man, Dr. Josh is a beast, man.
He is.
Later, Dr. Josh, I want to talk about Nimrod later. I don't know if I told you. I want to talk about Nimrod. Yeah. Anything you want to add about Nimrod, Russell? Because Nimrod is he's mentioned in the primeval history, and he's not mentioned anywhere else I don't think he's mentioned anywhere else in the Bible.
No.
Where did they get this story from? And we know the primeval history is mostly dated to like around 200, 150 BC. That was added to Genesis afterwards.
Well, I don't know where the figure Nimrod per se comes from. He has a lot of, he resembles Gilgamesh in that he's a great hunter and he ruled over a Babylonian city. But what is interesting about the Nimrod story is that it kind of reflects Babylonian polemics against Assyria. The Assyrians, especially a guy named Ctesias, he said that this queen Semiramis, and I forget who the king was, but anyway, they founded Babylon. They were the first civilization, and they established Babylon. Well, Berosus did not like that, so he put out a different version in which the Babylonians were older and founded Assyria. And I think that reflected in the story of Nimrod in Genesis 10, is it, or 11? Anyway, so there's this pro-Babylonian polemics there that is kind of a fingerprint pointing to Berosus. As I discussed, I think in our last episode with Derek Lambert, we went into it in some depth.
There was a poem, I think. What was that poem again? That in particular,
the poem of Erra.
I think it was.
and the Tower of Babel, yes.
Yes. That was one of the biggest things that, see, what I saw happen, Garfield, is we sometimes when we get these scholars on, we do satellite, or I like to call them airplane drive-bys. That's it. we see a forest, but we don't go into the trees. And I said, when I've heard you over and over interview Russell, and then I've interviewed him too, and I said, we keep doing drive-bys, but like we are missing bodies. You know what I'm saying? We're not actually hitting our target. There are so many details in the Green Book. So I said, all right, we have to do a 5-part series on this one book. There's, I mean, at least 5 parts. I was hoping to break it into 5. I didn't put like a number on it, but we had to go slow and literally talk about the details in the book because most people aren't going to be able to afford it. And, you know, to be honest with you, we want to give it to them so that they know about this and they could spread Russell's name out there, let other people know about Russell. So that was the goal, and we started getting into that poem. That poem right there just blew my mind. I was like, what? I had to read it too because your internet was kind of eh.
Yes, yeah, I got a new computer and a much faster internet service now.
Uh-oh.
So,
Hallelujah.
So Derek will be thankful. Garfield, that's kind of a Easter egg type of a birthday present. I'm not all glitchy like Max Headroom on your show. And Dr. Ma will also be happy because she wouldn't have any video of me when I interviewed her. I was just an icon because my internet was so bad. So maybe I'll be on her show again. But yeah, the poem of Erra. I'm the first person who pointed out its relevance to the story of the Tower of Babel. It was a very popular story in ancient Assyria and Babylonia that told about after the flood, Babylon was this great city, and then but Marduk had his clothes ruined because of the flood, so he had to leave and have them remade by some gods, and this created an opportunity for this other god to come in and destroy Babylon, and the ziggurat fell, which is the same as this story as the Tower of Babel, and anyway, there's all these echoes of the poem of Erra in the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible. Well, Garfield left, so maybe you can ask me a follow-up question.
Do I need to read the poem of?
You did. You read it.
Yeah, I know. It's worth reading.
It was great.
This is his birthday. We're not reading the poem right now.
No, go ahead.
How do I find it? Okay, how do you spell this thing again here? The poem of
Erra, Erra.
I guarantee you 99% of the people never heard about it.
Yeah.
I've never spoke about it. I know about it, but I've never spoken about it.
Oh my gosh, bro. This is right here what like kind of demystified the Tower of Babel, and it demystified like a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in the Bible. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. How much of this is, where's the poem? Do you remember where the reference was?
Well, I'm trying to find it in the Green Book, right?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, because I've got a very good summary.
The ultimate compliment when the author of the book is given a name and he uses the name that is given.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate.
Here we go, around page 125 to 126.
Let me open this thing. Myth Vision Books. Get this Green Book open here. 126, you said?
Yeah, it starts on the bottom of 125.
Okay. I'm going to get all poetic here in just a second. All right. And this is, now I'm on the electronic here. So 125. All right, let's see. 123. The story of the Tower of Babel.
Right. The next page, the poem of Erra.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to go ahead and try and read this. Bear with me. This is good. Okay. The poem of Erra. The Mesopotamian source of the Tower of Babel story appears to have been the poem of Erra, which described both the flood and a later destruction of Babylon in a second catastrophe of comparable severity. The poem of Erra was a very popular work, enjoying even a wider circulation in the first millennium BC than the Epic of Gilgamesh. According to this poem, the flood occurred when Marduk, lord of the gods, was angered at humankind and rose from his royal throne. A cosmic catastrophe ensued, affecting both heaven and earth, and floodwaters destroyed most of humankind as well as the city of Babylon. Now, okay, it was the next page, right? Where's this poem at? The poem of Erra provides
well, I'd summarize it. I don't quote the whole thing. But
okay. I'm looking for the actual... I thought you had the quote here. I'm reading... Okay, so you summarize it, so I'm just going to keep reading that then.
Yeah.
Okay. Destroyed most of humankind as well as the city of Babylon. Marduk himself was drenched and his royal attire darkened and ruined. Marduk rebuilt his house, i.e. his temple at Babylon, and returned to his temple throne. But his government was inadequate due to the condition of his royal garments. The Apkallu, the sages, who alone were competent to create a new splendid idol of Marduk for the temple, had been sent to the underworld. Marduk therefore planned to leave his throne again, to descend to the underworld, to have his royal attire restored, despite the second catastrophe that would inevitably ensue. In his absence, the world would be ruled by Erra, the Mesopotamian god of destruction. Waters again would rise, a storm would blot out the sky, and an evil wind would blow. The remnant of humankind who survived the first flood would be threatened with extinction. Cities would be destroyed and temples laid waste. Babylon would fall, as well as other Babylonian cities, even Sippar, which alone had been spared from the early deluge. The ziggurat of the sanctuary of Babylon, the city walls and towers would all be destroyed. But finally, the wrath of Erra would be placated. Marduk would be allowed to return to his temple, which, however, Erra still presided over. The gods would be reconciled and returned to their proper places, and order would be restored. Babylonia would rise again, and Babylon would be rebuilt, although at the direction of a curiously benevolent Erra, god of destruction. I hope I'm saying that right. Not Marduk, as one would expect. The ruined temples would again rise their heads as high as the flaming sun. So summarize what we're reading here for us, if you don't mind, Russell.
Well, the setting is remarkably similar to the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis. It's shortly after the flood. It features Babylon. It mentions the ziggurat, which is the Tower of Babel. And in this story, the ziggurat in Babel is brought down by this huge wind that blows over the city and wreaks destruction. And in certain versions of the Tower of Babel story, you also have a wind that destroys the Tower of Babel. For instance, in the version in the Sibylline Oracles. So there's so many things that resonate that it's pretty obvious that the Tower of Babel story came from this poem. Lots of scholars have said this has some kind of a Babylonian origin, but we can't figure out what it is. But I think I put my finger right on it. So that was one of my enjoyable little discoveries in my wide reading while I was researching the Green Book, which there's the Green Book, by the way.
Dude, you have a green screen. So.
I have a green screen and a green book.
Bro, do that again, Russell. Do that again.
Like, hold up, what's going on here?
It's Casper the Friendly Ghost book now. Like, y'all.
Oh man, the Green Book. I need that edition. I
know, right?
That's the Ghost edition.
Oh snap! Well, look, I wanted to come on, give you a shout out, man. I got to get the book. You sent me the link. I really appreciate it. And we're going to do a show on Myth Vision after I read the book. I do not think it's fair for me to jump on and try and act like, well, what are we going to talk about? Make sure you talk about it. I want to know what is in that book. And then we pump it out to my audience and get as many people to read and check out what you did, Garfield.
All All right, cool. Definitely. Russell, as far as this book coming out, what is your next project? What do you hope to work on next?
Who you talking about?
Beyond
Russell?
this book on Timaeus.
Right.
Well, then I've got another book that's pretty much written called Berosus and Kings, and it discusses some of the ancient sources in the Book of Kings, which has a lot of Berosus in it. It has a little bit of Manetho, was used as a source. There were the royal annals of Judah and Israel, and there's the Acts of Solomon. So, and there's also Greek stuff in the Book of Kings also. So I go through all the different sources. Really, the best source analysis of the Book of Kings, I think, that is going to be in print. And that's probably my next book. And after that, I have a book on the what I call the astrological history, the Enoch literature, and a lot of the pseudepigrapha, and kind of bring in some of this extra biblical stuff and show that there are some books from the pseudepigrapha that were used as sources in Genesis. So I've actually identified some new extra biblical sources, and that'll be another interesting project.
Yeah.
Got lots in the works.
Talked about Jeremiah and how Jeremiah's prophecy was also in Berosus, which is absolutely nuts. And they both got it wrong.
And they both got it
wrong. It's crazy. How is that even possible? How did they both got it wrong?
Well,
that's crazy. And
yeah,
Berosus is 3rd century. Nebuchadnezzar is all the way in the 6th century. You telling me he didn't know that Nebuchadnezzar didn't destroy Egypt?
Oh, I think he knew it, but Berosus was one of these. He was promoting Babylon. Babylon was the greatest civilization, and Nebuchadnezzar he conquered Egypt. There's even a tradition that he went out and conquered the Pillars of Hercules, the Straits of Gibraltar. So there were some really exaggerated stories that he told. Everybody was saying how great their kingdom was, and so some of these errors are like fingerprints that point to, this is Berosus. His fingerprints are all over Jeremiah, and they're all over Ezekiel, who has the same mistake. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's in the Book of Kings also.
Before I go, I want to say something about what you just said there, and I think this is important. Dr. Price is writing a book on the Gospels, and he's called it When Gospels Collide. And, I'm thinking, I can't wait to show how these don't match and how there's so many issues, right? But the way that he said it was so beautiful. He said, what you find in these errors is revelation. They speak more volumes than you know. When you see the differences and the sources might be similar, you see so many revelations. For me, that just takes the level at which we're studying the Bible to a whole nother depth. And it's fun. It's fascinating because it also shows the humanity and not the divine aspect. Oh, we got to act like this is perfect. Put some makeup on the Bible. Get your apologist out here. Let's make everything fit and make everything pretty. And that's not the reality of the books that we're reading. So I do appreciate it. And I can't wait to read what you put out there. And of course, read Garfield's book, but I'm going to go ahead and head out. Let him hear me say it though. So it's his birthday. It'd be rude for me. All right. Peace out. Bye, Garfield.
Oh man. Where you going?
Look, I just got back from 7 days of recording with Dr. Elaine Pagels.
That has nothing to do with me on my birthday.
See, that's the problem, bro. That's the problem.
Right now, you're messing with the friendship now.
See, okay, look, man. Look.
All right, let me ask you this. Since you're here, okay. What do you have coming up? You got Dr. Elaine Pagels, which is one of the greatest female writers in scholarship I've ever read.
Right.
In my life. Who else do you have?
Joel Baden, Professor Joel Baden, Professor John J. Collins, and then I probably have like 50 videos, maybe 55 videos that I've recorded with all three of them total that are going to go up on the Patreon, and I'm going to slowly leak them onto YouTube. But people who help support me, you know how it goes. And then this month, well, you know, in September, I'm flying to Cali, and I'm interviewing Richard Carrier for 2 full days and Dr. Dennis R. McDonald for 2 full days in person with the high definition camera setup and stuff like I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And then this month, I'm interviewing Ronald Hindall on the 8th pertaining to giants in antiquity.
Wow.
Doctor.
Why about giants, though? He's a brilliant mind. Why are you going to have him talking about giants?
Well, he's
having Russell talking about Bugs Bunny in the past. Come on, man.
Well, that's the thing. He wants to go into that topic. I said, I'll be more than happy to interview you. He wants to do it. Dr. James Tabor, who's written on the New Testament. We're going to take on Paul head on and the resurrection.
Great mind.
Yeah. Del Allison on the 10th. I'm going to be interviewing him on New Testament studies. I got this guy named Russell Gmirkin coming on the 7th of this month.
Why on the 7th? Is that regarding the Babylonian 7-day calendar or something? Why on the 7th with Russell?
Russell, actually, hopefully you check your calendar because it's right here, man. It's right on the
right now. I'm starting him right now.
There's also this scholar. He's up and coming. I mean, he's been around for quite a while. His name is Garfield. He comes on Myth Vision on the 6th. And we're supposed to talk about the lost tribes of Israel. That's on the calendar.
We're going to talk about the lost tribes of Judah. I got to mix
Okay. Then I need to, I'll title it The Lost Tribes of Judah. I meant cough, Israel, right?
Oh, man.
Apostate Prophet. He's an ex-Muslim. He's got a pretty large YouTube channel, and he's going to come on the 13th. I got a guy about full preterism and Steven Sorensen. A couple guys there that are coming on. What else, man? Oh, I'm going to be on a show. I can't even remember the name. Truth Wanted, I think it's called. Some big, critical show that I'm going to be on for someone else broadcasting as a call-in show.
Backup, man. You got me and Russell if you need backup. If they try to come at you too hard.
I call you guys. It's easy. And Russell's probably in the bathtub when I do. You know what I'm saying? So,
hey, before
I have Starbucks now. I've changed my routine.
Okay.
116 degrees yesterday, and I was at Starbucks drinking coffee.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Hey, last thing. Mark Goodacre is debating Mark and Priority on my channel with Jonathan Sheffield, who takes Matthean priority. Which came first, Matthew or Mark? And Dr. Goodacre is like a professor at Duke University. He's a legit New Testament scholar.
He's saying what? But what he's saying?
He's saying Mark. Mark's the earliest gospel.
Oh. And then what is the other person saying?
Matthew. Now he's an Anglican, so he believes in kind of the church tradition angle too, because Papias, if you will, kind of mentions this idea that Matthew precedes, but and he also said that Matthew was Hebrew. We have no Hebrew gospels, right? We have nothing that indicates that the author of Matthew, his original tongue was Hebrew or anything like that. We
have some fragments. Yeah, we have some fragments of Hebrew Matthew, though.
But how early would they be? You see what I'm saying?
No.
Epiphanius, that's 400s.
Epiphanius says it, and I think Augustine talks about not Augustine. Somebody.
I think Jerome might.
Jerome. I'm sorry, yeah. Jerome. Hey, Dr. Mayat, how you doing, man? See Dr. Mayat in the audience. Hey, Dr. Mayat, if you want to jump on, man, you're right here. Whoever wants to jump on, man. Have some fun. It's my birthday. Come on and celebrate with Garfield, with Russell Gmirkin, and join the Dagger Squad University, man. And for those who haven't subscribed, I do have Brother Garfield University as a YouTube channel also. I have a bunch of stuff over there.
I love you, man. Don't hate me.
Bro. Thank you.
Don't hate me, bro.
Thank you. You said
I'm getting your book.
Hold on. You said the 6th, right? I'm coming on the 6th?
Yeah, you didn't have that in the calendar, did you?
No. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second.
The lost calendars of Garfield is what we're going to talk about on the 6th.
Hold on a second.
And make sure you're on the calendar too, Russell. Make sure.
Yeah, I have you down 7/7 at 12 noon. Table of Nations.
Okay.
No,
Table
we're
of
there.
Nations. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
We're talking about the gods and covering all the nations, and
That's
then
the primeval history too.
yeah,
So it's key, you know.
absolutely. You're coming on a Myth Vision, man. We're going to promote the hell out of that book. I want everyone to check it out. I think what you're doing, bro, is seriously. I'm not just saying it. It's powerful. What you're actually doing is so important. And you know what Unc said earlier, real quick, I want to say, he said, you know, my people don't really know this stuff. We need to learn this stuff. Trust me, I'm in the same boat. 9 years ago, I was a Reformed Calvinist preaching the same, you know, Protestant Reformation ideas, and had never even dreamed there was a world about the stuff we're talking about right now. So I'm with you guys, like 100%.
That's where everybody starts. Everybody starts there.
Yep. Exactly.
Russell, do you have any information on Second Esdras you want to talk about? Because Second Esdras is a book that a lot of folks use, and it's more of a AD era book, but you know they think it's a BC era book. Or you want to leave?
Bro, what do you want me to do, man? You want me to throw my ring on the ground? You want me to get rid of my ring?
All right. BC, what's up? You wanted to say something to Derek, or you just want to say happy birthday to me? Which one?
Coming to say happy birthday. Congratulations on your book. Salute to everybody on the panel. Today's your day, Garfield. Peace and love, support from Dallas, Texas, baby.
Oh, I hear the accent.
Yeah, baby.
I hear the accent. All right, see you later. Thank you, DQ. Appreciate it. All right. Anybody wants to come on, man, just jump on and do their thing and do what they do.
Do I have your permission?
Yeah, you could leave, man. You can leave, man. It's all good, man. I know you're tired. You're traveling all day. Get out of here.
All right, brother. Love you, man. Thank you.
On the 6, you said.
Hit
6.
that like button, guys. Hit that like button right now. Show them some love. Get the book. All right.
So Second Esdras, which is Greek. I have it in my Apocrypha, and you'll notice my book on the Apocrypha does not have a green cover. Wait a minute, some of it's showing through. Oh well. Anyway, I don't have a lot to say about Second Esdras.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I mean, we're way over the 20-minute mark, so I'm gonna allow you to leave, and I'm gonna stay on for like 15 more minutes, and then I'm gonna sign off until 8 o'clock. All right. Okay. Get out of here. But Russell, I mean, thank you for coming on and blessing the channel again for the 100th time. I'm gonna hit your PayPal up, and I'm definitely appreciating it. I'm gonna fly out to Portland, man. We're gonna sit down one day in person, and we're gonna talk over stuff. All right.
Oh, so thank you. Well, thanks for inviting me on your birthday. Happy birthday again.
Thank you, man. I tell you what, thank you again.
Do great work.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Russell Gmirkin. And I want to thank him for coming on again and blessing the stage, the Dagger Squad University stage. All right. For anyone who wants to donate to Brother Garfield, ask Brother Garfield. That's the Cash App. And I have another Cash App too, Brother Garfield for you or something like that. But it is what it is. All right. In the meantime, is the book available in non-paper format? What is this going on? There's an emergency in New York. What's going on? All household domestic media limit energy use to prevent power outages. Okay. Wow. New York is burning out that power, huh? Okay. All right. Does anyone want to jump on and talk to Brother Garfield? Have a question or anything? I'm right here, man. Does anyone have any questions? I'm here. All right. Shout out to Sabia for the Cash App. Kadeem Stewart, shout out for the Cash App. All the people that donated, thank you very much. All right. Let me share the screen. Oh, SS So Real. Hey, what's up, bro? Ain't see you in a minute, man. Can James be proved to be real? Which one? Which James? Yeah, I'm coming on back at 8 o'clock. You know, Jamaicans, I'm supposed to go somewhere, but I don't even know if I'm going again, man. Because y'all know Garfield is a Cancer, and Cancers are moody people. So you know how that goes. All right. In the meantime, let me take this off the screen, by the way, and take my name off the screen. My name is fine. All right. So let's share the screen. I'm gonna bring the website up for a second. Anybody wants to order the book? Share screen. What's up, 93? Hold on to 93. All right, so now, let me also say this, by the way, too. If you pre-ordered the book, make sure you confirm with me your identification as far as your address, not identification, your address. A lot of people had to reconfirm because they moved. All right. So if you pre-order the book, make sure you reach out to myself or you email me at bookgarfield@gmail.com. All right. bookgarfield@gmail.com. All right. So if you go on the website, as you go in, you log in, you're going to see the sign buy the book right here. If you want to scroll through the website, you want to look at my handsome face and you get an example of what's in the book. You press on one of these to see examples. And, if you want to go on my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, or my YouTube, you could email me at askbrothergarfield@gmail.com. If you need to contact me personally, this is my direct number, 1-800-518-2817. All right. See the website. It's all jiggy. It's jiggy with it. And of course, you press on buy the book. Both books are the same, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So you just press add to cart. Then you view your cart. Once you view your cart, you proceed to check out. Once you proceed to check out, you put your address in and everything, and then you do what you got to do. All right? If you want it shipped to a different address, all that different good stuff. Okay? Simple process. Simple process. All right. 93, what's up?
Happy birthday, homie.
Oh, man.
Happy birthday, homeboy.
Ha.
I ain't gonna sing the whole song. Man, what's up, man? I seen you had some scholars on. I just wanted to ask you maybe a question or two about the book or whatever.
Yeah, hold on one second. Shout out to Dr. Maya. Thanks for the birthday wishes, Sister Queen. Shout out to Ngozi. I saw you earlier, but somebody was talking while you had shout out to me. And all right, so go ahead, my brother. Go ahead with the questions. Hey, Joel Person in the building. What's up, Joel? Straight from London, England. We got Joel. I have to change my accent when Joel is on.
It helps me understand people.
Mm-hmm.
And happy birthday, of course.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Were you able to order the book now that they fixed the problem with Stripe?
Well, they fixed the payment problem, but now it's telling me that there's no delivery option for my location.
All right, I gotta fix that. All right, cool.
If you say you're in the UK, it just says there's no delivery choice.
Dang.
Okay. All right. We're gonna fix that. Don't worry about it. We're gonna fix that.
I will get it eventually.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a mystery book. It's a real book. It's not Jacob or Moses. But 93, what do you wanted to ask me? Come on, man. Hurry up.
Okay, how long you been writing this book? The reason I ask is because there's a lot of information. I'm wondering there's a lot of good stuff that got left out.
Yeah, all right. Now let me tell you, a lot of good stuff got left out, but a lot of good stuff is in the book. So like the West African stuff is not in the book. The whole tradition of over 2,200 years of showing from the Gulat period all the way to the Amorite, to the Tanakh, to the to right now of a Jewish culture being passed on for years, for over 2,200 years. That's not in the book. The Deuteronomy 28 chapter is not in the book because, for one, it was 90 pages. So I had to eliminate that and put 3 different chapters in that was much smaller. I wanted to keep the book under 250 pages. So that's the reason why for that. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of good stuff in there.
Are you prepared for any? Because you know people gonna be trying. They're gonna try to dagger the book. Are you prepared for any rebuttals?
They cannot rebut the book.
Ooh.
You cannot rebut the book. You can't. How are you gonna rebut Mazar and William Dever? How are you gonna rebut conservative archaeologists? And everything that I'm saying is based. By the way, I use the Bible to debunk them. Most of the Bible is about using the actual Bible because this is what they need to see what the Bible says. So when I point out in First Chronicles, there's no tradition of the actual Exodus happening and the conquest of Canaan. That's a whole nother tradition. Nobody has ever done that before in the history of this community, period. As a matter of fact, in an Orthodox Jewish community, nobody even talks about Sarah Japheth's work. To be honest with you, her work is scholarly to the core, man. On Chronicles, she's a beast, man. I don't know why people don't talk about Sarah Japheth's work. She's a beast. She's like I don't know if she's alive. She's like about 90 years old right now. Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a Hebrew Israelite and I'm honest, I'm not like a completely biased Hebrew Israelite, and I read your book, what can I come away with after reading your book? What can I come to terms with? What can I admit to myself? What would I be honest with myself about after reading your book?
That I gotta go back and study some more.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because if you've got links to all the sources and you name the scholars, the papers, and dates to where to find them and all that stuff, then they can go and fact check if they don't believe something.
Exactly. Let me read something again that I've read the last 3 days. Archaeologist William Dever recently wrote, to make a long story short, today, not a single mainstream biblical scholar or archaeologist, listen to what he says, not a single mainstream biblical scholar or archaeologist any longer upholds Bible archaeology's conquest model. Various theories of indigenous origins prevail, in which case there is neither room nor need for an exodus of significant proportions. To put it succinctly, if there was no invasion of Canaan by an exodus group, then there was no exodus. The ancestors of the majority of ancient Israelites and Judeans had never been in Egypt. They were essentially Canaanites, displaced both geographically and ideologically. Now, I'm going to say something. I'm going to read one more thing. I'm going to read the words of Sarah Japheth real quickly in the same chapter. No Exodus, no religion. Let's take a look at what this wonderful scholar put on paper. In her commentary on Chronicles, Sarah Japheth writes, the tale as a literary work focuses on the person Ephraim, Joseph's son, an approach underscored by their father, his siblings, his wife, and so on. The events the events depicted occurred on the land, there is where the narrative's historical focus lay. The image of Ephraim as a genuine person established in the country is not a passing comment here, but a crucial feature, and this is also true of his brothers, whose arrival to console Ephraim in his anguish reminds the reader of Job's friends. Furthermore, Ephraim's daughter Shira is credited with the construction of 3 cities, 2 of which are well-known Ephraimite locales. Ephraim, his sons, brothers, wife, and daughter are all present in the country, and he could not have lived in both Egypt and Israel as a person. The tight link formed between Joseph and the land should be considered the chronicler's alternative to the Hexitus tradition, talking about Ephraim. Now look at let me read one more thing that Sarah Jaffet says. Hold on one second.
Yeah, she's official. I just looked it up.
Scholars agree Chronicles disregards an Exodus narrative. Scholars have previously pointed out that the book of Chronicles does not include information on the Exodus from Egypt or the following revelation at Mount Sinai. Given the prominence of the Exodus in biblical philosophy, particularly in the Deuteronomy stratum of the Bible, this absence has been seen as exceedingly important. The Exodus became a cornerstone of biblical philosophy, touching seemingly unconnected fields and themes at times, and was fundamental to biblical history in particular. Scholars have offered a variety of explanations for the Exodus's absence from the historical framework of the Chronicles, but few have mentioned or paid enough attention to the following point. Not only has a historical event been omitted from the chronistic narrative, but references to it have been deleted in parallel texts. So what I did also is I showed how they going into Egypt makes no sense, especially Judah. Couldn't have gone to Canaan, have children, then get Tamar, one of the children's ex-wives, pregnant, have twins. Those twins have children within 22 years. It's impossible. It's totally impossible. But that's what you'd have to believe to think that Judah went down into Egypt. But when you look at the other storyline from Genesis 38 and match it up with Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 4:21, you see that the stories are attached. And once they are attached, you see that the people who have children like Shelah have children, 2 children, and those children names are for the geographic areas within that area. You see it in Joshua. So that means they had children, and those children had children, and those children had children who grew up in the land of Israel. They didn't need an Exodus or anything. So Chronicles, and what Chronicles have done, Chronicles lay out all the genealogies from the eponymous ancestor all the way to David. Without Exodus, without a conquest of Canaan, they've lived in the land the whole time. The dagger is, which is not in the book, it would actually have been in Israelites. I'm gonna give you the ultimate dagger right now. Watch this. Now, why do we say Israelites are Canaanites? 1, the language. Hebrew, the language that's called Hebrew, is a Canaan dialect. It comes out of the Canaanite language. First hint. The history is the people there are actually Canaanites who have lived there for years upon years upon years. The archaeology, when you look at the pottery would have the proto-Israelites. They had pottery with the word El on it, showing which god they actually worshipped. Then you look at the god that they worship. They worship El. Their name is Israel, not Israel. It was Israel. El is a theophoric element, which, you know, if you're in the area, if you know somebody who's Assyrian, they would have the name Ashur at the end of their names. Different cultures, you see their names like the Abu God, where you have the word Gad, God, as a theophoric element to people's names that's living in the Canaanite region. The DNA shows that 50% of the people that's in Israel today, the Israelites and the Arabs, share 50% of what the Canaanites' DNA had. The highlands population growth, those people that move from the lower areas to the highlands, show that there's a continuation of Canaanite culture, shown by the pottery and all that stuff. When they didn't eat pork, another point, it was the Philistines who were the Greeks that actually brought the pork, because the pork bones are compared with the bones with the pigs that live in Greece. So they realized that it was the Philistines that brought the pork in. All right. The animal bones, the burial customs, their religion, all those things factor into people making a decision that the Israelites are Canaanites. But let me go even deeper. Let Garfield go deeper. The cherry on the counter narrative cake is found in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 16:1-3. The word of the Lord came to me, mortal, make known to Jerusalem her abominations, and say, thus says the Lord God to Jerusalem, your origin and your birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Now you might say, what is Ezekiel talking about, or whoever is writing this? Why would he say your origin and your birth were in the land of the Canaanites? Now watch this. Your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. Why would they say an Amorite is a Canaanite and a Hittite is a Canaanite? Because it says your origin and your birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Later in the same chapter, Ezekiel 16, verses 44-46. Watch this. Everyone who uses proverbs will use this proverb about you. Like mother, like daughter. You are the daughter of your mother, who loathes her husband and her children, and you are the sisters of your sisters, who loathe their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Amorite. Your elder sister is Samaria, who lived with her daughters to the north of you, and your younger sister who lived to the south of you is Sodom with her daughters. Now, the writer at the time is pointing out that Israel's origins is in Canaan, not Erra, not Haran, not Goshen, not Sinai, but Canaan. Watch this now. Bear in mind, the Amorites, at least in the conquest narratives of Joshua 10 and 11, are considered indigenous Canaanites in the Bible. The Amorites are not the same Amorites in history. The Amorites in the biblical text are indigenous Canaanites. Let me prove it. Joshua 10:5. Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. Those are places within Judah. Judges 1:35. The Amorites continued to live in Har Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shalbin, but the hand of the house of Joseph rested heavily on them, and they became subjected to forced labor. The Hittites, too, in some passages, appear to be a group in Canaan that long predated the Israelite conquest. Watch this. In Abraham, Genesis 23, verses 3-7. Abraham rose up from beside his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a stranger and an alien residing among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, so that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial places. None of us will withhold from you any burial ground for burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land. Which land is he referring to? What land? The same land that God gave them, which was Canaan. So in this context, Hittites is actually Canaanites. So you have to be wary of what's going on here. So if the Hittites and the Amorites is their mother and their father, and the Hittites were Canaanites in the context of the biblical text, in some contexts, because the biblical Hittites is not the historical Hittites, and the Amorites, the biblical Amorites, is not the historical Amorites. They are the indigenous Canaanites. That means the Bible is telling you that they are Canaanites. But watch this. When I showed Ephraim, Manasseh, Judah, Benjamin, all the tribes of Israel never went into Egypt according to Chronicles. It tells you a history of them living in the land, having children in the land, and growing up in the land. without an exodus, without a conquest. So the Bible itself confirms that the Israelites are Canaanites. I'm done.
Yeah, well, philology isn't used that as a background, but yeah, that's the one. I don't think there's any way to respond to that.
Well, we will see. They always have something to say.
There were a few people who had chats for you that got pasted into the private chat. People had questions.
I put that in there. Yeah, there was some questions because you asked questions. Eric Bond asked a question in the chat. He said, "Is there any mystical reason why modern Israel and Palestine is at war continually?"
Because of Islam and Judaism. No other reason.
Yeah, unless you consider faith to be mystical.
At this time, there's no other reason.
The main reason is because faith doesn't allow you to be wrong. So if two sides are both using faith, neither of them will be able to compromise.
War, right?
Exactly.
A mystical reason, yeah, I would agree with what Joel just said. Any more questions?
There was, why is Hannibal called black? That's because he's from Africa, isn't
it? Who calls Hannibal black?
Was not specified.
Garfield, so are there any historical attestations of the Jews actually going into Egypt with ship?
Yes, there is actually a primary source of the Assyrians documented that.
He ended up with Jews in every culture, though. They got conquered so many times by so many civilizations. There were Jewish slaves all over the place. Well, Hebrew slaves, I guess.
Well, their time in Elephantine, that wouldn't count.
It wasn't about ships.
I mean, how did they get there though? It's an island, right?
Well, they got there, according to what they said, they got there before the Persians. Oh, man.
I mean, just the positioning of Jerusalem and Judah in general. They ended up being like a trade hub just because so many cultures went through them to get to other cultures. So they were known. It's just that there wasn't any massive slavery project / exodus, and the population numbers are ridiculous anyway. Just on a like a project management level, you're never going to be able to shift that many people. Someone did ask a question about what evidence is there for Jesus' brother James.
Well, it depends on how you evaluate that whole situation. As far as James, people use the Josephus text, which is very, I mean, people debate on it, but I mean, I would say this to everybody. Everybody's going to write their own history, and they're going to have their own version of their own history, whether they add the embellishment and do all that stuff. I think for Jesus to have a brother named James, let's ask Paul. Let's ask Paul. And then when you ask Paul, Paul is saying, let's see what Peter says. And let's see what Peter says. And if you follow the Bible and if you believe the Bible, well, hey, it's their tradition, man. You got to give a little respect to some of the tradition.
Well, you also have the tradition of Mary being a virgin, so that would have been quite an embarrassment for the Catholic side. But it's a complicated question. There's a lot of ambiguity in that, and also there's multiple Jameses, so people tend to take all the different Jameses and squash them together. But it was a really common name because you've got the Apostle James, you've got James the brother of the Lord, you've got the James in Josephus, which is James son of Damnius. And then there's a bunch of other different Jameses scattered all over the place. So how do you choose which Jameses you glue together into a single person and which ones you keep as separate entities?
Hey, put all of them name in a box, and whichever one you take out, Let's just hope it works out for you.
Yeah, that's why the James ossuary makes people so excited.
Yeah.
It's just another random James that gets looped into the whole Christian circle.
My brother, what's his name again? Brother 93. 93?
My bad. I was ordering some food.
I bet you are. 93. The crux here is the reference to a return to Egypt. And scholars have sought various explanations for this phrase. S.R. Drive in his classic commentary on Deuteronomy interpreted this reference historically in the context of the Phoenician slave trade with Egypt. Now, thus P.C. Craig reads in ease with uncertain pointing about John Gray's emendation of the Hebrew word oniyat in Judges 5:17. Let me get this. To clear up this matter, however, one may appeal to a text from the Annals of Assyrian text. I'm not going to say what it is. Long known to Old Testament scholarship. This text is found in Prison X, Y, and Z, of which the main exemplar is the X, Y, and Z cylinder, line 68b to 74, concerning the Assyrian king's campaign to Egypt. In the course of my campaign, 22 kings from the sea coast, the midst of the sea, and the mainland servants obedient to my face brought to me heavy tribute during my campaign and kissed my feet. These kings, together with their strength, their ships by sea and land with their armies, I made to take the road to Egypt. According to this text, the Assyrian king was met by loyal allies en route to Egypt, who presented him with tribute and were then compelled, along with their military forces, to accompany him to Egypt, both by land and sea. This text would seem to offer a suitable historical background against which the heretofore inexplicable mention of Israel's return to Egypt in ships may be understood. Nothing is said in the text of the parallel of prism that, however, offers a list of kings inserted between that would be lines X, Y, and Z. The second name in this list is that of Manasseh of Judah. All right, so they have a text showing actually Manasseh of Judah going on a ship to Egypt. So that's that. Yahweh will cause you to return in ships. Deuteronomy 28 verses 68.
Thank you.
According to the IVP Bible Background Commentary on Old Testament, 2868, returning to Egypt in ships, Assyrian kings of the 7th century coerced their vassals into supplying troops for their military campaigns. One way then for Israelites to return to Egypt in ships would be in the Assyrian campaigns launched from the Phoenician coast, in which they were obliged to take part. This represents continued oppression by foreign enemies, as the curses have detailed. Another possibility would include falling victim to Egypt's slave trade in Syria, Palestine, where the slaves were often transported by ship. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to set up a debate with Sutek from the Mussy Warrior clan and Greg Phillips to see they want to talk about Moors. I'm not really interested in the Moors right now. I'm just dealing with the Hebrew Israelites. The Moors and the Muslims, they actually the Moors say that they are Moabites is just nuts right now. Right? It's just craziness. That's no different than the Hebrew Israelites claiming that craziness. No different. You know, so that's how I look at that. But anyway, any more questions, family?
Somebody said, what's the origin of the Canaanites? I mean, just the land that they grew up in?
People just moving over the years, thousands of years, moving from one era to another. As far as a set origin, I don't know.
Okay, is there any do Natufians play any role as far as like the Canaanites, as far as the Hebrews claims, because you know they try to use the Natufians, some of them having
predate
the
that.
haplogroup.
I gotta understand the conversation we're having. Is it a historical conversation, or is it based on theology? Because the Natufians predate Adam.
Oh man.
What are you talking about? What's this? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, they look at a study and they try to look at their haplogroups and say, well, see, these are the E markers, and you see E1B1, so it later mutated into E1B1A, and that's proves the Hebrews were African Americans.
How far are you going back in history? Because E1B1A goes back to E1B1B. E1B1A goes back to E1B1, which goes back thousands of years. So I would like to know, how are we having a conversation about Israelites when Israelites didn't exist at the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Oh man. All right.
There was another question by Black Lion Supreme. He said, "Can you show one patriarchal figure from the Bible who ever walked the earth?"
There's a text in Kemet. Nah, let me stop.
It depends on how patriarchal you want. I mean, is there a short list of people who are proper patriarchs? So I think King Omri is attested, I believe, in the archaeological record, but he's not really a patriarch.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him a patriarch. It's not. His Bible is not a complete mythological book. It's just that it's basically etiology. People are trying to write how they came about, but the problem, as I spoke with Russell a while ago, is people try to take it literal. You know what I'm saying? Literal, as far as the storyline. So when you don't see Greeks or Romans or French or Germans saying, "Hey, you remember this God we had from 1,000 years ago? I'm a descendant." You don't see no other culture doing that. They're the only ones that want folks to take it completely literal. Not all Jews, because you have the Reformed Jews who look at things differently, but not everybody. But this is what these Black Hebrew Israelites want us to do.
Hey, we got Jacob Berman.
Jacob Berman, what's up?
You're on mute at the moment.
You can read 3rd Maccabees chapter 4 that proves Deuteronomy 28:68. It actually doesn't. It's actually 3rd Maccabees is talking about going to an area, but it has nothing to do with the scripture because it's not in context. And that's what happened when we debate the Hebrew Israelites. We trying to say it happened. No prophecy happened. That's the first thing. You have to believe in prophecy. I don't believe a prophecy is real. So what I do is I look at the Bible and look at the historical perspective and see what evidence is there. Because if we said it came through at a certain time, no. I'm saying what the Assyrians did, I'll go by what the IVP dictionary of the Bible says.
Hey guys.
It's based on, what's up, Jacob? It's based on what's going on at that time period. Because if you look at Deuteronomy 28 verses 36, it talks about them having a king at the time. At the time of Maccabees, who would have been the king of Israel at that time? There's no king of Israel. There's no Israel. There's no Israel. Even when you do that Maccabee time period or Hasmonean, there's no king of Israel. Who are they at the time? They are Judeans. There's no king of Israel. So we'd have to apply it to a time period when Israel was a king, and Hosea was the king that they took to Assyria, that is referring to in verse 36. Wall fences, that time period, fighting the Assyrians. There's no wall fences in America, so it couldn't be Black Americans, you know? But what's up, Jacob? What's on your mind?
Hey there. Yeah, it took me a minute to respond earlier because for some reason, like for a moment, my internet disconnected and then it reconnected. So
what state are you in, Jacob?
Well, I was just gonna say real quick, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I like the discussion. I watched a bit of the discussion earlier. Yeah, the kings of Israel, most of them in the first millennium BCE, seem to be historical figures. And it's the ones that are before that that are obviously questionable. And things that I brought up in the past regarding this has to do with the Assyrian kings list. And the second king of Assyria is actually called Adamu. And it's very similar. The name is very similar to Adam. And then just like what was being talked about earlier, that the Old Testament has strong parallels to numerous different histories of different cultures. Another example is the Hyksos. Manifu, whom Josephus extensively quotes, he talks about the Hyksos Exodus, and of course, the Hyksos incident did actually occur, but Josephus thought that the Hyksos Exodus and the Jewish Exodus were one and the same. Whereas, from my point of view, the Hyksos Exodus was mythologized or used as a catalyst to create the Hebrew version of the Exodus story, but it's not. It doesn't connote to the same people, and that's the interesting thing, because Josephus seems to be combining the events in order to apologetically prove the Exodus story, if you get my meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be that something like that's going on here, and it's like it's a synchronism of different events, names, and stuff that were combined into the story that is now called the Torah. And it's something that took hundreds of years, regardless of the dating of the text. It took a long time to get it all to culminate into the Torah that we know. And then, of course, there are multiple redactions and edits. The Masoretic text says that the Most High inherited Israel, but the way it says it is different. But in the Septuagint and in the Dead Sea Scroll version of Deuteronomy, it says that the Most High divided the nations according to the number of the gods, and the Lord inherited Israel, as if the Most High was the father of the Lord. The Lord obviously is supposed to be Yahweh, which is actually where my research started. And Yahweh and the Most High were originally two separate gods. And that's always fascinated me. Yahweh was more like a storm or a war god, whereas El was the supreme god. And El actually was the god that was originally worshipped on the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And then later on, Yahweh took over for him as the God of the Sabbath.
Yeah,
just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, one of the things I'm sad that it's not in the book, that whole Deuteronomy 28:68 thing, because that's the scripture that's used by African Americans. And I'm not trying to beat them in the head. I'm trying to say you could stay with the God that you believe in, but don't condemn the people who don't believe what you believe in. And Garfield will leave you alone. And that's the issue, and the mistreatment of individuals who are actually in these organizations too is one of the major turnoffs. But I will say this to follow up to what you're saying, because that's one of the contradictions that you have in the Bible. When did they start taking on the Sabbath according to the biblical text? In one instance, it says in the beginning, and then it says, because while we were during the Exodus, that's why we have the seventh day. But of course, you have different writers at different time period who had to make up their own traditions.
Right. And that's the thing. Manifu never identified the Hyksos with the Jewish people. That was all Josephus's thing. And that's what Josephus was talking about against Apia. And there are people out there that actually think that the Hyksos and the Israelites are the same. I mean, just because Josephus said so, but but it doesn't work. there are numerous differences between the Hyksos and the Jewish culture. There's no strong evidence. There's really no evidence for a massive Israelite exodus out of Egypt. Anyway, the story was a mythologization building over the Hyksos story, and not to say that they're the same, because they're not, like I said earlier several times. So that's what I can't stand about the idea that they're the same culture. And of course, the Exodus also borrows another story, this one coming from the Akkadians, regarding Sargon the Great being born. I don't remember the exact details of the story. I might get a little bit wrong, but it's sort of like the Moses nativity story, where Sargon's put in a basket. He goes floating in a river because of the king. I think his name was Baba, was trying to hunt him down, something like that, or to avoid being found out. Sargon will later overthrow him later, and he does. And it's just like the basket story about Moses floating in the river. That's where they got it from. And then later the Gospel of Matthew would borrow the massacre of the innocents from the story of Moses and Pharaoh's massacre of the innocents. Kind of in that order. It's like the story evolved over a long period of time there. But they're borrowing from Sargon of Akkad. They're borrowing from the Hyksos story. They're borrowing from the Babylonians. They're borrowing from numerous cultures.
Hey, Garfield.
Yeah, I'm here, my brother. What's up?
So that book, Letters of Medieval Jewish Traders, would you say that book is like a must-have? What does that contribute to this conversation?
I don't know if it depends on the person's how deep they go. What happened is when you talk about when we use the term Jews and we talk about what they have done throughout history, what African Americans are doing is trying to attach them to a real people who follow the tradition. Most of the traders are trade routes that we have, the Amber Road, all these roads. What happened is whenever Christians and Muslims were at war, they always had like a buffer in between that got along with both. And it just so happens that most of these guys were Jewish. So say, for example, the Ottoman Empire is coming around and they don't want to mess with no Jews. They just want to dominate. And the Christians, they want to come and dominate. Usually, in most times when I'm looking at through this book, Letters of Medieval Jewish Traders, the Jews are the in-between. They would get along with one side and they would get along with the other side. And plus, when it comes to financing, they would be the ones who actually finance some of the slave trades. I mean, not the slave, well, the trans-Saharan slave trade, they did give some money towards that. But as far as trade in general, not talking about slavery, I'm talking about the gold and different things, the Indian Ocean trade, different trades, they were involved some way, somehow. So this book actually is just letters that the people who were Jewish, who were from either Babylon or from Judah or wherever they're from, this is just letters that they wrote. Like a guy wrote his wife and said, I'm not going to come back for another 2 years. You could divorce me. You know, so what I did, I didn't get to use it in this book, but it would be in the part 2 because it covers the Jews of West Africa.
That's what I was going to ask.
I would cover the Tamantit area, where the northwest, where Algeria is, where they had an actual synagogue. They actually had a synagogue that was destroyed, and he actually killed off the Jews, the Arabs. They got fed up with the Jews. They got fed up with them. So some of them ran off and went back wherever they came from and so forth. But I mean, it's what I did was I didn't read the whole book. What I did was there's a Google version. So what I would do is I would just search through Google instead of me reading all these 500, not 500 pages, 350 pages, because it's basically small letters, just tit by bit by bit that they found. You know, the Guineas manuscripts, and they have the Afghan manuscripts where they found Jewish letters in the Afghan region in the mountains. And so these are stuff that the Jewish community did. This is why, you know, African Americans ain't got nothing to do with this. What these Jews used to do, you don't see it within the culture of African Americans. So if these Jews are the Sephardic Jews were the African Americans, you would see them trading. You would see them worshiping the same way they do. They were pretty much Orthodox Jews. They didn't believe in the New Testament. So at the end of the day, these African Americans who are claiming that they're descendants of Jacob and ancient Israelites, they believe in the New Testament. So that's one of the major factors why we know culturally it can't be them. You're not a part of that.
That makes sense.
The DNA doesn't match. There's nobody coming off a slave ship saying, hey, I'm a Jew, remember? No, Jews used to hitchhike rides on slave ships because they were off limits. They weren't slaves. They were involved with the trade some way, somehow, where they helped finance some of the Sephardic Jews, not all of them. And then those who were banned from Portugal and Spain ran off to countries that would allow them to practice Judaism. So Jamaica was one country. Curacao was another country. At one point, Brazil was. Netherlands, certain areas in West Africa. So now in West Africa, you see them with the Senegambians, and they are exchanging rituals. So now the Jews would adopt some of the African culture, and the Africans would adapt. So the remnants of those people now that used to live there, if they say they are Jewish, you could tell why, because they were people who were Jewish who were practicing right there. You know?
It's interesting that the Christians are partly responsible for spreading the Jews around the world because of the way Christians during the Middle Ages used the Jewish people. So Christians weren't allowed to charge interest because the Bible explicitly forbids that. But what the Christians did was they said, well, the Jews aren't saved, and we can just kill them and take the money back if we ever want to, because of the whole blood libel, pogroms and all that. So what they did was they used Jews as moneylenders, sort of underneath whatever the local kingdom was. And then they could get their economy kickstarted, because that way they could get loans, people could start businesses. And what that did was it left a little niche in each kingdom for these Jews to spread out and make businesses and make a living, as long as they didn't overstep the bounds and end up calling in a debt on the king. They could, they could basically make a living out of this in a comfortable way. And as long as you made yourself useful, then you wouldn't get executed. So Christianity pretty much spread Judaism all across Europe.
Yep.
But I've got to back out now, guys. But happy birthday, Garfield. I'll join in one of your streams another time.
Thank you.
Oh, and it's good to meet you other guys as well.
Nice to meet you, fella.
Bye.
Okay. Eric Bond got a question. Garfield, will you write a book on the Cometics? All you have to do is buy a dashiki and become Kemetic today.
I'm going to leave that one alone. Shout out to Anja in the building. Bronx is in the building. Shout out to Pastor Bennett in the building. Shout out to somebody else. Hold on. Somebody else had given $20. Mr. Sauce. Shout out to you in the building. Super chat. But listen, guys, I'm going to cut off right now. I'm going to be back at 8 o'clock. We got Dr. Josh Bourne. We got Richard Carrier coming on. And we're going to be doing some things, man. We're going to definitely be doing some things today. All right? So peace and love to the family. I'm out of here. Jacob, you could probably jump on later if you're available. And we're going to handle our business, family. Peace.
Cool. Thanks for the invitation.
Anytime. Peace and love, family. We out of here.
Peace, family.
Bye-bye.
It's lunchtime.
I'm going to come on at 8 o'clock. I don't know if you're free then. And we could build some more during that time.
I think I can manage it.
All right, cool. All right, peace and love, family. We out.
Peace, y'all.
Bye-bye.